One. Welcome back. This is Silas Grant again with another installment of How Should I Introduce You? And I have two great people with me again on this particular installment, Mannone Butler and DeChelle Harris. And I'm really grateful to have the both of them here. As we always do, we start with just, again, how should I introduce them? The biggest thing for me has been respecting how people want to be received, how they want to be seen, and how they want to be introduced. So I asked the both of them prior to this recording to send me something brief that they would like to lead with. So here we go. Who is Mannone Butler? She is a daughter, sister, niece, cousin, friend, mentor, a native Washingtonian, a longstanding public servant, a proven and innovative leader, a Georgetown Hoya and a Wilson Tiger, a sports enthusiast, and a child of God. So welcome, Mannone Butler.
Thank you very much. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Silas.
Sure. Glad to have you. DeChelle Harris, detail-oriented, inspired, problem solver, interior designer, a creative being. She enjoys all things art, interior design, and fashion. She's quite good at a few things, but she's best at transforming spaces. She studied and worked in interior design for over 17 years. That experience has allowed her to change and improve people's lives, and she's witnessed firsthand how design affects how people show up in the world and how it can cause a shift in thought and action when executed properly. She's passionate about design and the role it plays in our lives. And she thinks that if more people found and followed their purpose, the world would be a better place. Lastly, outside of designing interior, she believes in the golden rule. Meditation and exercise are the keys to a healthy life, and indulging yourself a bit, forgiving yourself for your mistakes, and at least 7 hours of sleep are the keys to a good life. So welcome, DeChelle.
Thanks, Silas. Thanks for inviting me on.
Good stuff. So, and I meant to go grab the book and I did not, but I want to start with a game that I found in a book that I recently read called Win by Daniel Pink. It's a book about timing. And in the book, it also talks about synchronizing with other people in your tribes, right? So they have this game that he talks about called a mind meld game, MIND MELD. We don't have to go through the entire game, but I just curious. I've never seen it done before, so I'm going to do it for the first time here. So you can
All right. We'll be your guinea pigs.
yeah. So what I want you all to do is to take like a very quick moment and think of any word in the world. No limitations, just one word. Think of a word, right? And I'm going to count down from 5 to 1. When I get to 1, blurt the word out, and then I'll give you the next instructions. All right, so think of that word real quick. I'm going to count down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Synchronicity.
Serenity.
Okay. So now what I want you all to do, the goal is ultimately in this game is to get the both of you to say the same word. So now I want you all to think about the two words that were said, and then I want you to think of a word that combines those two. Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay.
So say your words again so we can be sure.
Serenity.
Synchronicity.
All right, so between those two words, let's see if you guys can get the same word that unites those two. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Serendipity.
That wasn't what I was going to say, so we're going to do it again. Okay.
All right, one more time. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Does a blank happen? Does that work? We're both
blank, that's it.
We're both silent with it. Okay.
All right, y'all want to go one more time and we can move on.
One more time.
All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Serene.
You want to say that, Mannone?
I was gonna say serene, so yes.
All right, well, that's good. That's good. That's good. So the whole point of that game is, about synchronizing people to work together on things, and timing among groups of people is also important according to what was written in the book. And I was just curious how the game would go. And why not try it here with two people who are just meeting each other for the first time? So that was that on that. And I do thank you guys. And I'm gonna try to do that like in a workshop sort of setting to see how it goes with groups of people. The goal ultimately is to take groups of two,
Right.
right, and then get the whole room to get to a point where they say the same word. So that's the bigger goal in the exercise if you kind of roll it out all the way. So that's just a
Curious
snapshot.
to see how that goes. I'd be curious to see how that
Yeah,
turns out,
yeah.
Silas. Yeah.
Yeah, it might take some time, but hopefully a group will get there one day to get to that point. So as I was reading the bios, right, DeChelle, you talked a little bit about design and how it helps people show up in the world. Why is that important? What does it mean for you to show up in the world, and why is that important?
When I say show up in the world, what I mean is like how you engage with other people, um, what your presence is like, just people's perceptions of you. And I think it's important because um, I think that as we engage with each other, we have effects on one another. And you meet people who are cranky, who are ill-mannered, who are rude, who just are not people that you really want to engage with. And I think that um, sometimes changing your surroundings can help to change that energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think, an example I'll give sometimes is like, think of like a teenager that's like in a space that is tight, that's cramped, that's cluttered, that's maybe dirty, just not a very efficient space. And think of that teenager trying to get up, trying to study. Now we're all at home. We have a lot of people learning in place, and they don't have a good environment in which to learn. With the teenager, just think that person is, trying to get themselves ready for school in the morning. They have a difficult time finding their clothes. They're, tripping over items. And then they have to get out and catch the bus and like go and engage with people. And their day has already started off like completely on the wrong foot. And it's like, how does that person, with those first 10 people that they are dealing with that morning, how do they show up to that person? Do they seem scattered? Do they seem like a little off? Do they seem anxious? Like, are they able to show up as their full natural selves coming from that type of environment? And I don't think that that's possible.
One question that I've asked in previous installments, and I'm going to change it a little bit here, but for the both of you, who were you in the 7th grade? So it's like first week, second week of school right now, right? So let's think back to like 7th grade. Who were you at that point?
So I would say I was a cool nerd. And I love sports. So I would play basketball. I actually was in a new school. For 7th grade, actually, my family moved to Kettering, Maryland. So I was adjusting to kind of life at Kettering Middle School, kind of getting my sea legs there. But cool nerd. Like I loved, and I enjoyed, I was curious. I enjoyed reading. I enjoyed school. I love sports. So that's, kind of in a snapshot, that's Mannone.
Gotcha. How about you, DeChelle?
I would say probably, I would probably say the same. I was a cool nerd. I loved school. I was good at it. But I wasn't like so like wrapped up in it that I didn't have like a personality, and, you know, people couldn't relate. I was like, I knew what was going on in popular culture, and, you know, I like reading. I like going to parties and, you know, hanging out with my friends. So I would say a cool nerd too.
I got you. I got you.
I was also starting a new school. We had just moved to North Carolina, so I was also adjusting to a new city with new people. And
Where'd you come from?
before that, we were in Connecticut and Richmond the year before.
Oh, okay. I never knew that. I always thought you started in North Carolina.
Nope. I was actually born in Richmond, and then we just kind of moved all over the East Coast.
Got you. Okay. That's interesting. I never knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know, Mannone, you talked a little bit in your bio about, you know, being a proven and innovative leader. How do you define leadership?
It's connected to also service. So the ability to serve as an example, to have a vision, to have a set of goals, and to be able to inspire and support the team to realizing those goals. And doing it, you know, in a lot of respects, you know, by any means necessary, but doing it in a way that allows, you know, folks on the team to kind of realize their best and brightest selves, while at the same time kind of collectively being able to be successful in achieving kind of some of the collective goals that you as a visionary and as a leader set forward.
Yeah. It's funny. Like when I look at the both of you, right, I know you all in different ways, but the one common thing that led me to try to make this connection was that the both of you, it seems like you all never lose your cool, right? It just seems like even if somebody's working your nerves, it seems like from a distance when I observe that the both of you have this like strong ability to maintain your cool. One, you know, how do you do that? And then secondly, are there ever times where you feel like that works against you, you know, not showing people that, hey, you know what, you really just tick me off with that?
I would say that I am certainly, I believe in kind of never let them see you sweat, but also that doesn't mean that you don't clearly articulate when things tick you off, right? I think it's the how, and there's always a time and place for doing that. But you know, I would always say, you know, don't let the smooth taste fool you, right? Because there is, you know, there is the reality that, you know, you have to be real clear and really just able to share when things aren't going right. I just believe it's the how. So folks don't have to see me frazzled or, you know, losing my cool to know that something's not right. I think because ultimately what are you trying to accomplish? And so I really try to keep my eye on that prize, and you know, perfect by no means, I'm not perfect with it, but that's something that just it's who I am. So
I would say one thing I found, it really depends on who I am engaging with. And if it's someone that I really don't know well, and, you know, we're not really seeing eye to eye, my thought process is that I'm not going to win that person over to my side. I'm not going to get them to see what I'm trying to get them to see by attacking them or insulting them or being like overly aggressive. Like, that's just not going to, I don't believe that that's going to win the battle, particularly if it's someone that I don't know. They're just going to walk away. But I think like in my personal life, one thing that I've had to learn is that it's okay to be vulnerable. I think sometimes for a while, I felt like being vulnerable, that was weak, because people they'll try to attack. They see that vulnerability and they'll try to attack it. And what I had to learn is that there's actually strength in being vulnerable. And if someone sees that, if they see your vulnerability as weakness, that says more about them than it actually says about you.
That's a
That's
good way to.
really that's so important, and I think I'm still kind of growing and becoming in that. You know, the spaces that I find myself in, the work that I do, and the things that I believe in. Really, it is always focused on being able to be clear and concise about what's. You talk about like opening the layers of vulnerability. I think that's something that I'm always mindful of, specifically as a Black woman, right? In spaces of leadership. I think that's something that's not lost on me. But I also appreciate the importance of being able to, as you mature, in these spaces, to be able to be comfortable in your skin, but be clear about, that means that there are going to be some things that you are vulnerable about, and I think that that's important. But it's interesting to kind of hear you say that. I've had some conversations with some good friends about that lately.
I find like people feel like they can't relate to you if you're not, they see whatever they see and they form these opinions about you, and they don't know that, you're dealing with things that they may not, because I keep it all together and I am like not showing where these cracks are, they don't feel as though that they can relate, or that there are things that that I may be going through. They're not aware of it because I'm not telling you and I'm not showing that. And I just have done a lot of work to get to a point where it's like, okay, I am comfortable revealing that everything isn't, it's a smooth taste, but
Right.
There's some other things going on too.
Sure, and I actually don't necessarily equate vulnerability with not sharing that there's some things going on in your life, right? I think that is important because we all, listen, we're in the midst of a pandemic and folks we're dealing with a whole lot of things, each one has, we all have our stories. But I think part of it also is being really clear in the notion of being vulnerable and with whom, right? Everybody doesn't, can't have access to certain parts of you in your life. I believe that. I think that's something that, again, as you mature, you think about, this isn't, who I am and what I'm about. It's not a veneer or a mask, because what you see really is what you get. But certain aspects of my life are reserved for the folks that I trust, that are part of my tribe,
Yeah, it's funny you guys mentioned that, because I got this book that I've started reading. I've committed to reading a book a week, right? In July, I'm on like book 10 now. And this is Russell Brand Mentors. And it talks about his battle with drug and alcohol addiction and the mentors that he established for himself throughout the process of rehabbing. And one of his mentors was a counselor at the rehab facility. And he was able to be vulnerable for the first time with that mentor. And then he had a visit from a friend of his, a really close friend, and he tried to share the same exact things with that friend. And even though that friend was in his tribe, his friend tried to like be defensive and deflected by being funny and make jokes about it. And he said in the books that peers remind us of where the boundaries of our tribes lie. Then he says, getting beyond the boundaries requires mentors. So I'm curious to know, like, in terms of who you, and you don't have to name names, but like, do you feel like the importance of mentorship, you feel like it, well, let me see, how should I ask this? Do you all have mentors? How important is it to be vulnerable to them? And do you feel like there are boundaries among peers when it comes to your tribes? So I know I asked a lot right there. So let me break it out again. So one, do you guys have mentors? Two, the importance of mentorship. And then thirdly, like in terms of your tribe, there may be limitations or boundaries that prevent you from being vulnerable with them the way you would with maybe a mentor.
I would say, first question, yes, I have been blessed to have folks, mentors, some more formal than others, but folks who really made it a point to pour into my life and to be a part of my journey. And, you know, and I've really been blessed to have folks who care enough to see me through challenging periods, periods where I was trying to figure stuff out, and who made it a point to really get to know me well enough to know how best to lean in and to support me. I think it's critical to have mentors. I think that, and I feel absolutely comfortable, you know, and I have shared good, bad, and ugly, you know, with my mentors. Really blessed to be able to stay really connected to those folks who, you know, the more formal sense have been my mentors, and have regular interactions with them. With the peers, you know, I have a really solid tribe, a sister circle that's really very important. So I have a sister, biological sister, who is my best friend, but also have a sister circle that I am, again, blessed to have. And, you know, actually, we typically, at least during this period, we get together Thursday nights. Today, actually, it just so happened that schedules were what they were, so tonight was not the night we could get together. But to really be able to lean on, rely on, share some of those most intimate, you know, experiences, challenges, areas where you feel vulnerable, like that's the circle. I'm really, really blessed a circle like that. And I feel comfortable. I think that, you know, certainly there are boundaries that, you know, you feel, and kind of everyone in the circle is not similarly situated, if you will, but I do believe it's important to have that if you can find it. And I'm really blessed to have it.
Yes, I do. I do believe in mentors. I think mine have probably been less formal than formal. But I seek that out. I seek those relationships out, and I feel very blessed to have those people in my life that have taken me under their wing, that have kind of, you know, pushed me in the right direction. And, you know, I'm very vulnerable with them, and I feel comfortable. I feel comfortable being that way. I don't really feel like I could be mentored by them if I weren't letting them in on what is going on, and the ways in which I may be stumbling, and the ways in which I may be succeeding. And as far as my tribe, I would just say that I have no problem being vulnerable with my tribe, but I think I'm vulnerable in different ways with probably each person in the tribe. One may get, you know, everything, and then one may just get like a certain portion of everything. But I think that in order to be in my tribe, that's something that you kind of have to be, I have to be able to be vulnerable with you, or you can't really be in my tribe.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I think this notion of vulnerability is not the same, right? I am probably a lot more private. Mm-hmm. So for me, being vulnerable is kind of opening up on some things that, you know, for some that's like a given, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's a subjective thing, but the notion of having a group of folks who love on you in spite of, and in spite of kind of the crazy times or issues that just come with you know, life, is something that is again a thing that I count it a blessing to be able to just say that that's a part of my life.
Yeah. DeChelle, you talked a little bit in your introduction about, I'll just simply put, self-care, mm-hmm. right? 7 hours of sleep, you know, meditation, exercise. Go into more detail about the importance of self-care, because I know there are a lot of people that may not really have any concept of it. There are those who may have a concept but feel like I don't have time to build it into my life. There are folks who just may not be able to accomplish it. So, you know, how have you been able to accomplish making that a part of your routine?
Well, I found like years and years ago, like as much as I hate running, I just found that afterwards I just felt like so much better. Just like there was just a different energy. And so from that, anytime that I'm feeling stressed, anytime that I feel like, anxious, I have just always used exercise as a way to kind of deal with those emotions and those feelings. And I consider that to be my self-care because it's good for me physically, but it's also good for me mentally. And I feel that you have to do these things that lift you up, and you have to make yourself a priority and make time to take care of yourself, because if you do not, again, it goes back to how you're showing up. If you're not taking care of yourself, then how are you showing up?
Uh, uh, for me, I started walking like maybe it was like June of 2019. So every day since June 1st of 2019, I've done it like at least 3 miles.
Oh,
And
wow.
I figure out like sometimes I'll do a 5 mile walk or 6 mile walk, and like I'll solve the issues of life on that walk. Right? So I found that to really be a difference maker. I was listening to a guy named Jim Rohn who does a lot of motivation stuff, and I've been journaling not only in a journal book but also I do audio on the audio app on the iPhone. And one thing that he mentioned was that, don't spend that journal time complaining about what you didn't get right. Document ideas. So I try to do that as well now. So I found a lot of relief and comfort and also growth in physical activities and self-care. So I'm always curious to know what people do. I'm not at the point where I'm able to run yet, but I want to get to that point too. And I'm sure there'll be some benefits from that as well.
I oh, I was just gonna say I started journaling maybe about 3 months ago, and I find that it's so good because it makes me check myself. So like I just journal. It's a stream of consciousness. So first thing in the morning when I wake up, I'll like meditate and then I journal. And it's just like me writing whatever I feel. And it's like, sometimes you just tell yourself, these crazy things like, just a sob story, a pity party that you're having. And it's like, as I'm journaling, like my brain is like, that's BS. Like, you need to check yourself on that. That is not the way it happened. That is not what's going on. You're just in this like state of feeling sorry for yourself, and you need to snap out of it and like do what you need to do. And so I just find it like really helpful as far as challenging. You have this negative voice in your head, and the journaling just kind of helps to like, is that really what's going on? Or is that just a story that you made up to make yourself feel better about what's going on?
I was just gonna say, one of the things, the way I check in with again, my tribe and my loved ones is, first of all, we talk about putting that oxygen mask on yourself first.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so to me, that is when we talk about self-care, that is it. And so what does that mean? In the morning, there's kind of this routine, again, with loved ones in my life. There's morning affirmations that we're sharing with one another, morning check-ins that we have with one another, just to set the day off. One of the things that I continue to say, and actually, folks are asking, how are you doing? For me, just being grateful to be upright and mobile,
Yes.
right, is kind of the check-in for me as I begin the day. And then being able to have these texts that are a part of my daily routine is a part of self-care, because it's feeding me with, the positivity that we really do need to surround ourselves with right now, right? I am and I've seen you, Silas, in Anacostia, right? So I seen you when you were doing the cycling, right?
Yeah.
So early on, it was me really getting my Anacostia Park on, and I loved it because it allowed me to, explore Anacostia Park in ways that, and I'm a native, right, to really be able to explore it and to just enjoy the beauty of DC and specifically Anacostia Park. I also, I mean, OTF, Orange Theory Fitness, has been kind of a thing for me. It is probably, I'll leave it at it's a thing for me, because I enjoy being able to have a concerted period of time dedicated to get, you know, a real workout in that you know, that allows me to get my sweat on, but also to really focus on me without any other distractions. So that workout is really important. And then, you know, again, before I close my eyes, what are those things that I'm, you know, kind of feeding myself, you know, by way of communication with my loved ones. So important to be able to open my eyes in that way and then close my eyes with some positive fuel, so that I can kind of get this thing going, because there's so many things that are going on that self-care has to be, you know, a priority for us, especially now. It has to be a priority.
Okay. DeChelle, how do you meditate? Because for me, when I try to do it, I find myself getting tired and like sleepy when I do it. Is that supposed to happen?
Yeah, that's supposed to. I mean, you're so relaxed. You know what I mean? You're taking these deep breaths. Your body's getting oxygen. You know, your mind is intense with all these, you know, extra thoughts. I mean, thoughts come in, but, you know, you're supposed to just let them come and go. And so you just really get in this relaxed state. And if you're laying down, you can definitely fall asleep. I've done that like many times. But yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, I was curious because I'm always reading on it, and there are people that talk about it on podcasts and things like that. And I'm often, you know, I feel guilty if I'm feeling sleepy. I think I'm doing it wrong. So that's what I was
You're doing it right.
Yeah. So Mannone, we talked a little bit about sports before we started recording, and then obviously in your bio, you're a big sports fan. I'm assuming you played sports too, right? If you're a big sports fan.
I played a little basketball, but the thing is, so my father, who's no longer with us, was a coach. So he coached basketball and football and all sports, golf, baseball, played minor league ball. So I grew up kind of as a part of, in my, actually, I share my father's birthday. So I'm putting all these things together, connecting dots, that I grew up knowing that I was a tomboy. So I enjoyed, you know, just being out playing, but also it was a connection with my father. So
Yeah. Recently, I know John Thompson passed away. You're a big Georgetown Hoya fan. Just talk about his impact, not only in coaching, but just in this area.
Certainly, he's just, there's a legacy. You know, there's a celebration in January every year, the Kennedy Center, and it's named after John Thompson, really honoring public service and public servants in the District of Columbia. And so as much as he has had an impact on basketball, certainly nationally and internationally, he also has had a huge impact on the community, the District of Columbia, and public servants. It's interesting that the service was today, and, you know, just to see a number of the players who came back and to honor him, but it wasn't just the players, right? It is a community of folks. I've been on a number of chains, you know, kind of threads, email communication, Facebook communication, and the stories are just so powerful. When you're talking about Black and brown folks who went to Georgetown, and they're noting that John Thompson was, in a lot of respects, the reason why, right? You know, growing up in the area, a lot of folks knew about Georgetown because of the basketball team. They knew about the basketball team because of John Thompson's stamp, right, on the team, the stance that he took. And so certainly now, as we are kind of in the midst of a focus, a heightened focus on race and justice, certainly he paved the way, or he further paved the way for folks in not only in the arena of sports, but just generally to really be focused on using your platform to make these important statements about race and justice in this country. So huge impact. huge impact.
You know what's funny, right? I think about John Thompson's impact. And I look at like his white counterparts that were, because my dad growing up, he was a hard-nosed dad. And like most of my friends whose dads were in their lives were hard-nosed men, really strong, you know, rooted in what they believed in. But that was not always promoted on television among Black men, right? So John Thompson was probably the strongest Black personality that I can recall in the 80s that was on television consistently. And then you look at like some of the white coaches that were that way, the Mike Dickers, the Lou Holtzes of the world. And then now in like 2020, to hear them speak the way they do about Black people and Black causes, like really in opposition to it. And as a Black boy, I remember my friends and I, you know, really clinging to those examples of leadership from white men. And it was really unfortunate as an adult to hear them speak the way they have spoken over the past few years. So that even heightens the importance of people like John Thompson, people like John Chaney, people like Nolan Richardson, who were really not just Black coaches, but coaches that were Black and also were not ashamed of their Blackness. And looking back, I don't know, as a child that I really took in consideration how important that was, but now I think it's really, really important. And I'm glad that people like John Thompson paved the way for Black folks today in sports on television to be able to speak as openly as we start to see Black people speak now with respect to the importance of Blackness itself. So yeah, John Thompson was definitely an important figure. DeChelle, now, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like I've been on some threads with you. Are you a Duke fan or a Tar Heel fan? Which one are you?
I'm a Tar Heel fan.
That's it. Okay, I knew. All right, full disclosure.
It's a Duke thing here, right?
Full disclosure, I do like Duke. That's why I remember you in some of the threads being against us. One of the things that I remember talking to, and you may remember Torrey Farrington that played basketball at Hampton.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's from his family's from Chapel Hill. He talked a lot about Dean Smith and his involvement in the Black community there. But you know, growing up as a Tar Heel fan in North Carolina, you know, you guys had no shortage of like really, really great, you know, superstars. Who was your favorite Tar Heel growing up?
I would probably say Brenda Haywood.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I would probably say that was who my favorite. But there were lots. There were lots, but he was just like, I don't know, for some reason, he just was my favorite.
Got you. How about you, Mannone? Who's your favorite Hoya?
Oh, see, I have a number of Hoyas that I appreciate. But I will note that when I was in my senior year at Wilson, Dikembe came and was kind of a guest teacher for me for my French class. And so that was really, it sealed the deal, right? He was smart, certainly just full of personality and life, and was certainly an amazing basketball player. And then to see it on campus, and so now to get to Georgetown and see that he was as you know, amazing on the court, he was just a good person off the court. So he's one of those examples for me, and I'm a big I appreciate Dikembe.
Yeah. I've really been curious as of late around what social activism and Blackness looks like in these professional leagues. Obviously, you guys probably heard about the boycott, like all of us have, with the NBA, and like it lasted for a day, and I was a little disappointed about that. But go ahead.
Why were you disappointed?
I was a little disappointed because I felt that 20 years from now, if there was an asterisk on this season and it was shortened because of protest, that's something you can never, ever overlook, right? If you're looking on a website and you see 2017 champion, 18 champion, 19 champion, 20 asterisk, no champion because the season ended, you're going to always ask why. right? So you could be a 12-year-old in 2056 and you were not alive when that happened, and you're going to have to ask an adult what happened, right? Whereas if they got an agreement from the NBA owners or from the commissioner that, okay, we'll do these one or two things that you all want, or we'll pick it up in the off season, I don't think that was the best way to showcase the power that the NBA players had. And I think their power was to really alter history. And I think from a historical standpoint, if there were no ending to this season, everyone for the rest of eternity would have to ask what happened in this period.
No, I feel you. You're making me think, Stylist, because I gone back and forth on this, but I do think that being able to assert certain demands, and again, it's to be seen what it will kind of yield. But this is a pivotal year, and so as much as I am very much focused and interested in kind of what's going to come years down the road, I am very interested in what's going to come in the next few months. And so to be able to harness and yield and wield power now within the NBA, I think is really, really important. And so the ability to leverage the state, or to agree on, we're going to have stadiums as voting spaces, right? To also broker other agreements that will likely have immediate impact is, to me, pretty important. And so I get it. I think the days off certainly were not just newsworthy. I think there's going to be an asterisk because of that. But I also think that there is something to be said about them collectively harnessing power and being real focused on what we need to do, or what they are looking to do in the next within the next 2 months.
I thought the voting piece was important to utilize those larger arenas, because obviously I think in certain states we're starting to see, in the red states in particular, the voter suppression around certain locations being closed. So to have larger locations that people can go to, I think could really counter those sorts of things. DeChelle, I know your folks are from North Carolina. That's one of those states that's like really pivotal. And I often think about my family who's in South Carolina, and I feel like in some instances the importance of their vote ranks a little higher even than my vote here in DC. But what are your folks saying about this election cycle in North Carolina?
Oh, they're very you need to vote. People need to get out. You need to make sure your friends are voting. I mean, they're very, it's like whoever the candidate is, they may not have been your pick, but that's who we got. So you need to get out and you need to vote for them. So they're very, very, very passionate and outspoken about about the upcoming election. I will say that I kind of agree with you about the boycott. I feel that, I'm a big person about boycotting. Like, I'm like, what talks? Money talks. Like anything else, you hit somebody in their pockets, they start to listen. They start to make changes. They start to do what needs to be done. And, I think it's great that they're turning the arenas into, voting places, but I definitely see your point about the boycott.
I'm really, I guess, interested to see how it rolls out, and then like what it looks like 20 years from now. And then, I also think about Colin Kaepernick and where he falls into history. Because I think now we're starting to see people like LeBron emerge as leaders in this space. And, we all have seen history twisted and changed in the past. And I'm just curious, like, whether or not, 20, 30 years from now, will Colin still be at the forefront of any discussion about what was happening like right now? So
I definitely think he's going to be at the forefront. I definitely think that, he will be perceived, that he was ahead of, he is pretty much the one that brought attention, as far as it relates to sports. He was the main figure that stood up and said, like, this is a problem, and sacrificed for it. And I think and, you know, one thing that I think about with everything that's going on now is people don't realize that, when the history books are written, you're not going to be remembered fondly if you're on the other side of this thing. I think that a lot you're just not going to be remembered fondly, and the history books are not going to be kind to you. And the way people remember the stance that you took is, it's not going to be favorable. But people are so, I don't know, steadfast in their hate that I don't think they are thinking that, I don't think they're thinking ahead.
So as I'm listening, I'm also thinking, and I think about the Colin Kaepernicks of the world. I think, Colin Kaepernick's predecessors, right, who took stands, and in the midst and with great sacrifice, right. Think about the Muhammad Ali's of the world, and those who took stands and are not as noted. But I also think about, for example, the women of the WNBA, who have been very clear and focused, and have been, driving and leading the charge. And so I also, as much as I think it's important to elevate and acknowledge, and also walk shoulder to shoulder with a lot of the folks who we've already named, I think it's also important to note and be real clear about the legions of men and women, specifically in the sports arena, who have been really very focused. And the sisters in the WNBA are no joke, right? And I think it's important to really see how steadfast they've been, and to acknowledge that.
Yeah, I think, and given the fact that at the same time, they're not just fighting for social justice, they're fighting for their own equality.
Yeah.
Because so here they are fighting for higher salaries, but then they're willing to boycott, to sacrifice what they are already getting, which is not enough. So, that, I think that puts them in a very unique position, but it also doubles down on how important this is to them. And they're showing that through the fact that they're willing to sacrifice even the lesser that they barely get as far as revenue is concerned. I know we talked about women and we talked about history, and, putting aside partisan politics, I want the both of you to kind of speak about the importance of Kamala Harris being in this space now, having been the, presumptive nominee for the VP position for the Democratic Party, what that looks like. Because for me, I know as a Black man, I know what it was like to see Barack Obama in that space. And I know that he had an impact on everyone, but I think it was a difference for Black men to see him there. So now to see Kamala Harris, in a similar position, what is that like for you all to see that?
I think for me, it's like, it's wonderful. I just think like her entire pedigree, going to Howard, HBCU, being a member of a Black Greek letter organization, AKA, I just think that whole, I feel represented in a space where I've never seen anyone like me be represented. And it feels, it's very inspiring.
Yeah.
I think we have a woman who is qualified, who is in a lot of respects, unequaled in terms of background, and to the point that DeChelle made, also her roots, I think, really create it's a pathway. And oftentimes I think it's important. There's so many discussions around Kamala Harris right now, and some of them are we're slicing and dicing, who she is and what she represents, or who she represents, and I get it. I absolutely get it and understand. I think it's important for us we're not a monolith, specifically Black people. We're not monolithic, and I think it's important to be able to ask questions and to be real thoughtful. But to your specific question, I am proud as a woman, as a Black woman. I'm ecstatic. And I am, and I am ready for us to be able to not just say the Democratic VP nominee, but
yeah, I think it's going to be a real interesting. I guess it's now less than 2 months
right.
before we find out what ultimately happens. Well, I really, really, really want to thank the both of you for being on with me. As I've mentioned before on these installments in the past, for me, this is an experiment each time, and I learn a lot each time. And I'm appreciative for the both of you for joining me and being a part of this process.
Well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. Mannone, it was very great to meet you. Thanks, Silas, again, just for the invite. I didn't know what to expect, but it was wonderful.
Good, 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 good.
I appreciate it, Silas. Wonderful to meet you, DeChelle. I have to talk to you later about all of your design, your expertise. We're going to make that connection. I'll follow up with you afterwards, but really appreciate this, Silas. I appreciate the way you're curating conversations in a real easy way and connecting. Again, now more than ever, it's important for us to connect with one another. So I don't take it lightly or for granted that you've taken this on. Really appreciate you, Silas.
Thank you all again. For those who are watching, again, this is How Should I Introduce You? I hope you all enjoyed the convo as much as I did. So until the next time, we'll see you after, I guess, we'll see you again at some point. We'll figure it out.
Sounds like a plan. All righty. Take care.
Good night.